Jon and Robbie, welcome to the Multi-Hyphenate. I'm so excited to have you both here. You guys are doing incredible stuff that I have so much to say on, and I know you do too. Jon, I'd love to start with you and hear about Alchemy Springs, which recently opened in San Francisco, and a little bit about how you got into the bathhouse world and how you ended up choosing to open one yourself.
I actually went to my first bathhouse in Montreal. So I was in Canada. I was 18 years old, and I was like party boy, having fun, sports, all that stuff. And we went up north to Montreal to like go hang out up there, and was with my friends, and we made a wrong turn. We ended up at a place called Strom Spa. We went inside and we just hung out as friends in a freaking spa environment, and it changed my life forever because my bros are now like, we're like having these meaningful conversations. That was like the first impetus for Alchemy. Then over time, I ended up working with a group called Summit Series. I was head of community there for a while. We're more or less designing spaces and environments to create connections between people from all walks of life. So saw that as a moment and was like, oh, how do you do that better? Or how do you do that in a way that actually is consistent within cities? And then we bought a place called Powder Mountain. And one of the first things we built there was a spa environment, so a couple of hot tubs and a steam room. And I saw that space as this like amazing like platform or container to connect people. And so then it just kind of went on from there, and I just started studying bathhouses, went to over 80 different bathhouses, taking notes. And ultimately, I knew at some point it would manifest into something, and now it's manifesting into Alchemy Springs.
Robbie, what about you? Opening Othership, how did you land in that space?
My wife was really big into health and wellness, and so I had just got sober recently, and she had reached out, and our first date, she's my wife now, but it was, not even girlfriend at the time. And our first date was actually around an ice bath. And so she'd read an article or podcast from Rhonda Patrick about the health benefits of the sauna and ice bath, which nobody was talking about at the time. And we did a Google search and found a Russian bathhouse on the outskirts of the city that kind of looked like a massage parlor. And so we pulled up and we're like, what is this place? Like little neon sign, like back of an alley behind a strip mall. And so we went in, and, it was an incredible first date. Like normally there's a lot of nerves, and we did the cold plunge together, and we're like, holy shit, this is crazy. Like what's happening to my body? And, it was such a highlight. Turned out to be something that we would do every week. And, for me, I wanted to be in places that felt like they had a vibe at night, but no alcohol. I was nervous about being in alcohol environments. And so I moved to San Francisco and was going to Archimedes Banya, like probably over 100 times. We went down to Berlin, and we would build these WhatsApp communities of Banya goers. And so it would just be a conference like, hey, we're all going. And, 30 people would jump in the WhatsApp, everyone would go. And these were like pretty dingy places, and it didn't really matter. Like they were fucking awesome. And the next day, everybody would wake up without a hangover and just be like, wow, it was awesome. We had great conversation. It was kind of the night out energy. So I always loved bathhouses. Became like part of my identity, my life as like our first date. And we moved back to Toronto, and I was nervous after 4 years of sobriety of like, hey, my friends in Toronto, a lot of cocaine, a lot of partying. My life's going really well. How do I meet people that are similar to the crowd I had, community I built in San Francisco? And so we built an ice bath in my backyard, kind of went back to the roots of like this ice bath idea. And it was just free to come to. Single ice bath, horse trough. The gate was open all day. Anyone could just drop in. So if you knew, you knew. And there'd be like 10 people having coffee there all day. I wasn't working like super, super hard at that point. And I was just meeting people. And it turned out myself and my wife and another couple, 5 of us in total, best friends. We just were there every night, hosting a fire, having people. As it got colder, we were like, oh, I wonder what we can do here. Like there's a community starting. And so we converted my garage into a sauna and ice bath. And that was prior to COVID. And that grew into a 1,000-person community, people just coming every night that were in the neighborhood. And that's where we got the idea for sort of these emotional wellness classes that happen in the hot and cold, which is what makes Othership different than traditional Banya. That's sort of the history is was just deep love of Banyas, wanting to be sober, trying to build community locally in a bootstrap manner. And it just kept growing and growing into having launched in New York about 12 days ago.
So amazing. Congratulations. So I want to jump straight into what you were talking about with this sort of idea of a sober night out where you're waking up not hungover. I got to visit Othership a couple times, and it was my biggest takeaway. I mean, I walked away raving about it to every person I talked to over the next 2 weeks. I was like, guys, this thing, it's going to be a game changer. It's the next it thing. Like everyone in New York is going to be filling this space within the next couple months. I had been inspired by bathhouses from a conversation I had with Jon, I think 3 years ago, because I had just gone to my first one and I was like, whoa, this is mind boggling. Why am I so into this? How did I not know this existed? This culture is incredible. I feel like with Othership, you know, we hosted an event at Zero Bond in New York, which is this like super luxury, cool it factor club. And Othership, when I walked in, I was like, this is the Zero Bond of like bathhouses. Like it was like this very like luxury upscale feeling. And, you know, you walk in and the main sort of seating areas, every piece of it feels like an experience, from opening the lockers to the towels that you get, which are very luxury. But in the main part, I think what really spoke to me is, for my particular experience, we did a class. So there was an element that was in the sauna, and the sauna has this sort of almost nightclubby lighting, like very vibey, low light. And then you go from the sauna into the cold plunge, and you're with a giant group of strangers. And so between the sort of temperature changes and this huge emotional release of, you know, literally screaming with 90 people in a sauna together, which sounds crazy, but was amazing. And you come out and everyone feels high, right? Like a natural high from these temperature changes and the vulnerability, whatever. And so there's this opportunity to sort of feel in an altered mind state with strangers still, in the same way you get in a nightclub experience, and be talking to people, be flirting with people, be making new friends, whatever. And it like clicked so hard for me, because I've been mostly like sober curious over the last 9 months, not for any particular reason other than I got really tired of being hungover on weekends. And this was like, I can still make friends and be an extrovert and be social and go out. It like solves for all these problems. So I was just really curious about this, and curious if that was kind of something you were thinking about as well, Jon. I know you got to visit recently, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on Othership. And just Robbie, how you've been thinking about, like, is there a lot of intention behind creating kind of like a programmed up almost nightclub culture without the nightclub?
Yeah, I mean, it changes with each ship and each city. And like, you know, the intention was always that like a bathhouse, there would be a nighttime hangout without alcohol. And like bathhouses have that concept. I think what you can do in the space has evolved for us. And like the first one, we could only fit 50 people. But you can't really have a party with 50 people. Like you can, and it's a social, but it just didn't feel the same. And, you know, we open our second unit, can fit 100 people. And now in Flatiron, you can fit, you know, 200 people will have come in. And the insanity of like what is happening, like I never expected it. I didn't even expect that was possible. And so it always meant to be social, but now it's like, okay, a DJ, and there's 2 saxophone players and a trombone player, and there's, you know, a magician doing tricks, and there's like dancers in the showers, and there's a fire dancer in the cold plunge, and, you know, there's a tarot reader in the tea room, and there's somebody like giving massages in the sauna. And so this idea that you can have like 10, 20 performers and like themed mega parties is new for New York. And it's been something where I've like, it's blown my mind. I'm kind of watching this happen. Oh my God, like, okay, the tea room is a dance floor and it's packed and people are hands up, and it's like, whoa, that's so cool. I didn't expect people would want to be that close together in bathing suits. And like, there's a lot of cool stuff happening in a sober environment. Like, one, nobody's wearing different clothing. So it's like quite a big equalizer versus like, oh, look at like the clothing I have. No one's even wearing makeup, you know? Especially, so you just kind of show up, you're in your bathing suit and you're wrapped in your towel. Nobody's on their phones, which like there is no nightclub or music festival in the world where no one's on their phones. It doesn't exist either. So those two things, you know, you're kind of feeling the vibe to dance. And if you don't want to dance, you go in the sauna and you talk, and then you get too hot, you come into the cold plunge, get fired up, and then come right back out onto the dance floor. And so it's like this nice flow where you can easily move away from the party, where in a nightclub, it's like same volume everywhere. It's like it's like there's like refuge, but you're still getting the state shift from the hot cold. So like seeing that, I was like, whoa, I never expected this to be possible. And then also what was really cool is like there's 60-year-olds, 70-year-olds. And that was just a New York specific thing. I think I haven't seen that in Toronto to the same degree, but like dancing their hearts out. There's kids there, which we don't normally allow because we don't have like, okay, fine, like whatever. And, you know, it was just awesome. And it was 6 a.m. So there's been a few of those parties, but we did one with Daybreaker, and they just brought the energy of, I felt like on my way home, I'd been to a full blown rave, like that energy of like, whoa, I just did something special. But I was sober and happy. And I was just like, wow. And you kind of see this confusion on people's faces.
That was how you're like,
you'll look at them and they're like, what? I feel like, fuck yeah. But like, what? Like, but you can get like this without substances. And so it's like sometimes, I think in life I'll do these things and be like, whoa, it's happened to me in Othership, 5 or 6 times where like the very first time that something like that happens, it's like, I didn't even know this was possible. And then there's the classes, which you mentioned too, which we can talk about, but the social piece, I think it's come to its full fruition here. Like, I don't know that we'll get
so
bigger
cool
than this, but so yeah, it's
of course
it's
New
awesome.
York's going to bring that out, Jon, I'm curious to hear about your experience.
Yeah, well, there's a quote in like the technology world about like whatever the nerds are doing on their weekends, that's how you know what the next trend is. And
are we the nerds in this?
Yeah, but I listen. I think what Robbie was talking about in his early days, and like, yeah, same for me. I was living in New York I had obviously a lot of friends, but I would still find myself to be lonely. So I would go to places like Spa 88 back in like 2016 or whatever, and just have my crew meet up there to kick off the weekend. Like that was our thing. That place isn't as approachable and feels good, nearly as good as Othership, where you're like, oh my gosh, like all of my values are being, for one, you see your community, you're like, oh yeah, these are my people. Like you'll end up like I went there once and I'm like, I know 4 people in this room. And obviously we didn't even think to go, we weren't even going together. It's just because the environment that they've set forward, that's like, it's attracting in, these types of people and types of communities. Point is, the thing I also knew early on that again, Robbie was like, he was able to like translate in many ways, like this feeling of getting hot and then cold. And then after that, like whatever that is, that euphoric feeling is better than most drugs. I swear it is. And and the data is starting to prove it. It's like, I'd rather do that and then wake up and have an amazing night of rest and then wake up and go hiking in the morning or do something, where I'm feeling fully present because of last night's experience. Where you can't always say that when you go to a party or nightclub.
Yeah.
Anyway, love my experience at Othership.
I'm super curious, Jon. I like have to ask, you said over 80 bathhouses now, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious, like, what have you taken away from that? What were the biggest learnings
I'll
that
share
have really stuck
something.
with you? Yeah.
So I went to a place this weekend. I'm curious if Robbie's been to this place, but I love it. It's called Frog's Hot Tubs. Okay, you know Frog's,
Amazing
Robbie?
name.
I've heard like legend. It's like just north of San Francisco, right?
That's right. Yeah. And their website's the best website in our industry. It's just, I think it's a picture of a frog on a lily pad. And the reason why I mention that place is because, we're not doing anything new. That place has been there since like the 70s or 80s or whatever. Mm-hmm. And there's just so much character and depth in the tradition that I just think needs to be honored and in a very like open experience that I think, again, is now like I don't want to lose some of that, like I don't even know what to call it, like rusticness of the tradition, where you just kind of like go to this place and it does feel it feels a little bit imperfect. Like there's a beauty in that, and the connections that happen off of that. And again, I went this weekend to this place, and it's like all people in their 70s or 60s, 70s, and like the wisdom transfer that's happening in those tubs and in the sauna has a beauty in it too. And I don't know if that's happening in other places in society right now in the same way. And so summarize the whole thing is that what you find in these bathhouse environments, especially again, like Robbie was saying, stripped down, away from our clothes, away from our typical phones, all that stuff, is that people are dealing with the same things. Like we're just humans, and so you really get to feel the essence of that. And again, when you have a really diverse space, like, speaking of Spa 88 or the place here or Othership, like you're finding that commonality between each other. And I swear, especially right now in the US, it's needed more than ever, right? In the world, it's needed more than ever. So it's like, where are we doing that? And who's creating those spaces? And so, I don't know, I think Othership and what we're doing just, really important in that regard. And that's ultimately what I've taken away from all of it.
I know you mentioned something about a 4th place too, and I'm curious how you define that or what that means to you.
Yeah, I'm not the one to define it. I think it's my friend Patricia Mao. She's actually like defining this whole new category, if you will, of places that are really around meaning making, right? So not home, not work, and not a Starbucks where you're on your computer and just like doing work. It's really a place that you can kind of have introspective experiences or conversations with others where you're transforming yourself because you're going deeper and you're unlocking certain things. You're peeling back the layers, if you will. So spaces that are literally conducive to that is what fourth place is summarized as. And again, back to Othership, like basically like 10 years of different types of therapies are in, a 90-minute session.
It's so accurate.
Yeah. Anyway,
Robbie's
that's
figured out some magic distilling here.
I mean, like, we look at the classes as like artwork, and like a creation isn't like, hey, this is a class. It's like, this feels to us like creating an album or a song. Harry, one of my co-founders, is like an artist, a musician. He went to architect school. And so like he's working on a new class on gratitude. And so, he starts, he thinks it's 90% done. And then he goes and listens to like a 3-hour deep dive from Huberman on the science of gratitude. And then he goes and reads 2 books on gratitude. And he's like, oh man, the list of just like, here's my 4 things I'm grateful for today. That's actually not how gratitude works in our brain. So like, okay, I have to go down and totally rewrite this. And so there's a combination of like the science coming from CBT and different therapeutic exercises mixed with like entertainment. And I think that's what's really powerful, or why it feels like there's 10 modalities wrapped in. Because we're taking from everything, it's like, we'll go to a group singing circle and have our minds blown and be like, wow, that was crazy. Did you feel that moment of like resonance when everyone was singing? How do we like put that in? So it's just looking at like, what are ways to get people out of their thinking mind into their body in a group. And that just like the art of like doing that is so fucking fun. And like to watch it go, it's really cool. It feels like the world's ready for something like this now. And maybe like 10 years ago, just wouldn't have been possible.
Totally. And it feels like, bathhouses, Othership, Alchemy Springs, they're almost like Trojan horses, like where it makes it approachable to do some of these modalities that you wouldn't do otherwise. For
you
instance,
throw the word biohacking on it, and a bunch of people are like, "Yeah, we're in. Let's do this."
Totally. But I was just thinking how, again, in Othership, and we've done this too in Alchemy. We've done like somatic breath work, and it's kind of hard to get someone to really scream at their loudest alone. It really is hard. I've tried to do it, and just like it feels awkward. But in a sauna where the lights are out and you're with 50 other people doing it, you absolutely get to another level that you couldn't have got to, I would imagine, in just like a somatic session with the therapist.
Totally.
So this is a real unlock. It's not just like, taking the things that we've like learned. It's like actually enhancing them in many ways and making them more approachable. So I think it's a huge deal.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's just something really unique and interesting too. I've been thinking about this. I'm out on Cape Cod right now, and I've been getting in the ocean every day. And I used to do that a lot as a kid. Like every single day I'd be up and like straight in. And being back here as an adult, I'm like, oh, this is kind of a lot of what I'm getting out of the bathhouse too. It's jumping in water, like does something for the soul. I feel like we all just need to be in water more, but I'm also very much like a water spirit. So what can I say? But Jon, I think you're an investor in Othership actually. So would love to hear more about how you guys met.
I'll tell a quick story. I met Robbie in Austin. He was at a house. There's a lot of very interesting people there. And we started talking, and there was ideas inside my head and a feeling inside me that literally were his speaking the things that I've just like, I feel that. No one's ever said that before, but I've been like, it's been inside me. I'm like, I pretty much, if I had a case of cash at that time, I would have just handed them. Because I'm like, all right, you got, like, please, thank you for figuring this out.
I think we like somebody, because we met that time in person, but I think I invited you because we were already talking, and like maybe we'd had a Zoom or something, and like maybe Beagleman introduced us.
Beagleman. I don't think it was Beagleman. I don't know.
I'll have to look. Somebody was like, oh, there's only so many people interested in emotional wellness and saunas and community.
This is kind of my curiosity is like, is there a community? I know you two know each other. Have you guys met a community of other like bathhouse owners who all know each other and are knowledge sharing?
That's kind of like what I know how to do. I don't know necessarily how to like build things. I've gotten better, but I don't know. The thing I know how to do is create like containers and like systems to connect people. And yeah, I mean, along my little journey, I was meeting a lot of different bathhouse entrepreneurs. And my business partner, Anne, at some point was like, can we just put everyone in a WhatsApp group and start to share ideas? And I was like, yeah, by all means, like here's 10 people who I think would make sense. Obviously, Robbie was first, right? So, but yeah, we have, and there's a couple other groups, I'm sure. But like, yeah, we have literally a squad of bathhouse operators in a WhatsApp group right now. Yeah.
That's amazing. I love the community building in this space. Okay, so what are this is more just my own personal curiosity. Like, what are some pitfalls of running a bathhouse that you wouldn't necessarily know from the outside? Like challenges you've run into?
Yeah, I mean, like, look, this is probably like the 4 of the worst months of my life, and it's like great. We got it open, and like it's crushing it. Like the numbers coming in are insane right now for us. Like way more than I expected this fast. Like we're in the first 10 days, we're having more people now than in Toronto for 2 years, and so
Wow.
it's like extremely successful. But the cost was like legitimately 2.5 times what I thought.
Hmm.
And that's like having built 5 or 6 things before. Like there's like legitimately probably 40 people working on the project between mechanical, electrical, plumbing, structural engineers, city expediters, permit expediters, general contractors, construction managers, budget managers. Like
Wild.
it's intense. And like the amount, like because your listeners are probably like software based, and like brick and mortar is just gnarly as fuck. Like you're going to get sued. Customers are I get 5 complaints at least every single day just because I get all the negative stuff sent to me, and we do over 1,000 people a day. So of course, some people are going to have feedback across our units. So it's just so challenging. Like we have kind of 150 employees now across our 3 units. There's just hardcore stuff is happening all the time, And
Hmm.
so, the pitfalls are like, do you want to do this? Like for 2 years, I folded towels and like guided people through in my backyard. I like by hand built the first garage unit that we had, and then running one, it's like, oh, we figured it out, and you haven't. You have one that like running 3, it's completely dead. People have told me like it's going to be way more expensive, it's going to take way longer. I'm like, yeah, they don't know. Like I know, you've got the successful one, of course, it's going to be great. And the amount of difficulty going to a new city, it's like 10 times what I would have projected. So much so the point now we have a house in New York and there's 10 of us living here. And we've actually even had to have another 4 come down. So there's 14 of us living in a house to like get the culture right.
Wow.
Because if you're expanding a brick and mortar space, like you only have so many employees, and that every customer needs a touch point. And if like your front desk is not on point with the check-in, like it can ruin the experience. If your guides don't know the culture, like all of that takes time. And so you see a lot of these brick and mortar non-bathhouse businesses that try to scale too fast, and they break the culture because the GMs and the AGMs, they haven't been trained. So like building many of these, I think you have to be kind of crazy. And like if I had known the difficulty 5 years ago, I would have seriously been like, this is really hard. And then just like what you have to put on the line, like you're responsible for the leases, you're responsible for the capital payments. If the business doesn't work, like what do you do with a bathhouse? Nothing. You can't like sublease it.
Right.
You have to get rid of all the equipment. Like it's just the amount of risk you're taking on and the amount of challenge in the builds and the permitting. And I'm curious to know, I mean, I've talked with John and Ann for a long time, and San Francisco is actually like, I think it's harder than New York. I think it's like the hardest city in North America to build in. So it's just really hard. Like, to build a yoga studio, you're talking like 500 grand, maybe $1 million. Like you cannot do anything for that and like be to code and like, so, and then like to build these things, you generally have to have an MVP because no one's just going to give you like 5 or 7 or $10 million. So it's just everything about it, from like designing, financing, building, operating, is really hard. Now I have to cut 30% out of my build for the next one, and I'm like trying to figure out how to do it. And it's like that lease was also signed, like we signed these leases in parallel, and so I'm on a time clock.
Yep.
And I just opened this one. I want to focus on like the operations, but now I'm focused on construction again. And on the flip side, like it's so much fun. And like I had my 40th birthday, and my friend surprised me with a party at Othership with the magician, and like one of my co-founders sang me a song in the sauna that he wrote for me, and I was crying and just, holy fuck, this is so much fun. If I'm feeling really shitty, I'll just go to a class and like watch people sharing, and I'm like, man, okay, even if this whole thing burned down, which like maybe it was worth it, So, but the last 4 months have been, I wanted to quit like 3 or 4 times, and I can't because I would be bankrupt. But I like was like, whoa, this is really fucking hard, and I've overextended, and like we're starting to see the wins now that we're open, and the revenue's crushing. So it's like, oh my God, it was all worth it. But yeah, not for the faint of heart. So I'm curious, John, how it's going over there, man, because I'm my heart is with you guys, man.
Thank you. Yeah. I think the head of each approval board here is like also the head of the NIMBY association of that area. Essentially, the NIMBY not in my backyard, so it's just very difficult to do many things here, and people love to like define themselves with their role of being a stickler around certain code. And anyway, I think there could be a set of memes sent within our WhatsApp chat of just things breaking and like water shooting out. Like, I've seen yeah, I mean, I've seen multiple videos, images from different people in our industry where just like it just things break. It just happens. Like people rip off shower handles all the time. They throw water everywhere and like anyway. Um, so I've personally, I'm earlier in the journey, but I'm still in folding towels mode, and I personally can rebuild. I feel like, you ever seen Forrest Gump where he like rebuilds the rifle really quickly? I can do that now with these cold plunges. Like I know how to take it apart, I can put it back together. Like, I've done that enough times where I'm like, all right, I know cold plunges. In my mind, when I was like building this, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to chill in a sauna and steam room and cold plunge with my friends. Like this is going to be the life. And then like actual weekends, just literally looking at parts of cold plunge or sauna. So that's what it's actually like for me,
Build
right?
one from scratch now.
What are your hours? Are you like full on, like
We're
morning to
just
night?
Yeah, we're still in very much like a preview mode, and we just do more or less weekends and a couple like secret times that we send out to our little WhatsApp community. So
Dude, wait until you get into like, I mean, it's going to be so successful. Like I can't wait to come out. I've just been so busy with this, but the sauna is a work of art. I saw it and was like so impressed that you guys did something like, I've never seen anything like that. I think like the height, the round, the shape, it's really cool to see people doing their unique spins. And I was just really proud of you for delivering that. Wait until you're open at 6 a.m. and you close at like midnight, and you're just going to be like, fuck, like, something breaks and it's like, you got to get people in at 2 a.m. and then like, the cleaners don't show up. Like it's just, once you get into these volumes, which you will, it's just an always on situation.
Robbie's like, I haven't slept in 5 months.
Yeah. One of my closest friends, it's so funny to talk about this. I mean, one of my closest friends runs a nightclub in New York called Public Records. I asked him this question. I said, what's it like? Like, you guys' hours are crazy. Like, you have a restaurant, you have a cafe in the morning, and then obviously like events till 4 a.m. And I was like, how do you do, like, who covers the shifts? And he more or less looked at me in terror. And he's just like, you have no idea. You don't want to even know. He goes, I don't even know what's sleeping. His eyes are something like you've seen, some darkness in his life. What am I getting into? So I can only imagine, especially in New York, what it's like over there. But I want to cap that. Like Robbie was saying, with the other side of it, it's so energizing. And intentions are really important. My intention going into this was I had an experience at Spa 88, like we were talking about. I saw a yoga instructor talking with 30-year-old yoga instructor talking with a 60-year-old Wall Street banker. I said, there's nowhere else in the world this is happening like this. Phones away. And my intention was to create more spaces like that. And now I think we can measure our success, even in our little operation, by like how many phone numbers get exchanged in the locker rooms. It is amazing. Like, it is working. To see people, again, literally from all walks of life, going into our sauna. It's a round sauna. The thing that I didn't realize was that it's like a machine where ultimately, because people are looking at each other, they all end up over time in one conversation. Like it's like a system almost. And then they leave, and then they're in the locker room like, okay, let's become friends. And it's like, okay, my life is fulfilled. I've seen this now 3 or 4 times. These people didn't know each other, all walks of life, one conversation, locker room, everyone's exchanging numbers. I'm good. I'm happy, So anyway, there's a real meaning and beauty in the business as well.
I love that. I didn't realize the sauna was around here. I think so much. I mean, the three of us, I think, all have in common a passion for community and connecting with people in deep ways. And I'm always curious about the dynamics of community design and experience. So that's very cool.
I wanted to know, Robbie, what are your favorite bathhouse? You said something about, like, what was your first experience, like where you went on that date, and then what have been some of your favorite experiences since then?
So that one was called Southwestern Bathhouse, and it was just on the outskirts of Toronto, and it's like a Russian family and like traditional food, fantastic. Very similar to Archimedes, but even more intimate and tiny. So no pools, just a little hot tub, a little cold plunge. And it's just spectacular. Like it feels like you're in 100 years ago, the way the design is done. And so we would go every like Sunday night just for the food. So that was like the first. Another one that came to mind when we built the sauna in my garage, we called the space Inward, and I actually proposed to my wife there. And so it's like very special to us because I put the ring in like one of the ice balls, and she was giving me a massage, and it like melted into her hand. And so it's like really been part of my sobriety journey, our relationship, our marriage. Most of the moments are like at Othership because it's not really about the bathhouses, more about these like emotional components that have unfolded in my life. So I mentioned that 40th birthday party, like my 30th birthday party, I had spent the whole night doing cocaine. I went downstairs to have a cigarette and my family was there for a surprise party and I hadn't slept. And I was like, this is the worst day of my life. And so to be in 40 and like have a wife and a son and like all these people here having fun and like doing the surprise was like really powerful. The very first class we ever had, it's called the Rose Thorn Bud. And the very first day we were in the sauna in Adelaide, like, hey, is this going to work? COVID's just ending. We'd spent all our money. We'd signed the lease during the lockdown, took such a big risk. And we did this Rose Thorn Bud. And, you know, in the bud is you set an intention. And I was like, oh, I want to have a baby with my wife. And we're holding hands and we do the cold plunge. And so we have sex that night. And I'm like, yeah, that's the intention, you know? And like, sure enough, after the sex, I was like, well, maybe it didn't have to be right now, but, you know, kind of got away from me. And so she got pregnant from that, and which is just insane, you know, that happened. So that, and then like a few months later, we're in the sauna and it's like one of our first socials, and Harry and Amanda, my partner's like, hey, everyone come in the sauna. And this is like guests, like journeyers, we call them. We're all in there together, and they pull out these 5 ice balls and they do a gender reveal. And so like first one's lavender, next one's cedar, you know, gets to 2-2. And the smells are like, is it boy or girl? Is it masculine or feminine smell? So it's 2-2. Everyone's like, I'm kind of into it, but I'm like, oh, they don't know. Like they're kooks. They're just calling in the spirit of the baby. My wife's like, no, like I got the test. They know this is real. And I was like, holy shit. And so they, in the sauna, in front of all these strangers, like people I don't know are crying. I'm hearing like, oh my God, does this happen all the time here? Like, you know, like just the Friday night gender reveal. And so they throw it down. It turns out it's a boy. And that's how I found out I was having a son, was like in this space that I built, which also used to be an after hours in Toronto that I used to go and do cocaine at. So like the space itself has went through a transformation. We call it Othership, like our tag is like space for transformation. So it just was a really, like all those moments in my relationship, my fatherhood, my friendships, when you ask like, hey, I have other like obviously like bathhouse moments, but those are like just, you know, when I started thinking about like what are my most impactful moments in a bathhouse, those. But that one, when I found out I was having a son, I had to go home. I was like crying and just like I can't even be here in this like intense environment. But it was just such like a nice surprise. So yeah, I would say like, you know, thinking about it now, I never said this before, but like 4 out of the best 5 moments in my life were maybe in the sauna.
And Margaret, what's amazing here is like there's, you know, this is Robbie's experience. Like as like more of these spaces get built out, right? Like everyone's having moments like this. Robbie, someone posted on about how Othership's transforming New York. I totally believe it changes the fabric of the city. I think it offers just a new way of living. I think it offers these moments that create meaning in people's lives. I think you know, as the U.S. gets more of them, like again, like literally the fabric of our society will change because people will be more connected to their hearts, their communities. This is a very big deal. You know, I'll bring up one thing about blue zones. Like, let me step back. I work in the longevity space. Like, I still have a day job in longevity, and what you find is like, of course, there's all these like different ways to like make yourself live longer. But the number one thing is really a sense of connectedness to community that actually mitigates stress and mitigates loneliness, and ultimately like makes people have a reason to live longer. That actually is one of the most important things in longevity. Moments like Robbie's talking about will change his life and other people's lives. Like it's just like what's going to happen, and so it will change the fabric of society. I'm really excited about it. Anyway, I go on for days like this, but
I know, I totally agree. I'm like, just the idea of having, you know, 5 couples who are meeting in a backyard every day, that's kind of the like adult dream, is that you still have that sense of community that you used to get on a college campus. I always laugh because I went to Archimedes is the name of the one in San Francisco, right?
Yeah.
I went to that like 3 years ago with coworkers of mine, not realizing it was like basically a nude bathhouse for the most part. And so I'm with like two, I was also at Summit Series at the time. And I'm with like two facilitators who were like, basically meeting for the first time in person. And we're like, oh, okay, this is what's happening. Like, let's do this. It's like such a different way to get to know your coworkers, which I think in most cases wouldn't have worked, but in the summit context, because we're all summiters, which is just sort of a weird out there space to start with in the best of ways. Like we were just like, yep, this works. And we're all just way closer now and can have these open conversations because we're already literally sitting naked in a sauna together.
That's right. There's a real vulnerability that connects people in the sauna and the cold plunge, and it's unspoken. It's unspoken. It's like you don't even have to have a conversation. You can just look at each other and be like, oh, we're dealing with the same exact heat, the same exact cold, the same exact rawness, again, physical vulnerability. It's just there, so you're automatically connected.
So amazing.
What are you most excited about, John?
I'm really excited about introducing people to this new way of living. Back to the first question, things that Robbie, you've talked about many times. It's like I actually think there's a better lifestyle in the world again, I won't speak the world because we're late here. In the U.S. that has not been introduced yet. I think it's just starting to happen. And it's like we're a very go world, go society, drinking, partying, all that stuff. And it's like, where's the counterbalance to that? Everything has a counterbalance, but where is it? Like, how do you do that? Where do you recover? Where do you recover your body, your spirituality, your mindset? Where does that happen? And it's like there needs to be spaces for it, and that's what we're building. So. I'm really again back to like the societal shifts. I get really excited about this stuff because I think it's a better overall world for people to live in with spaces. I don't know.
All right, last question for you two. I'll have you both answer. I'm always interested in what people are curious about right now, like whether that's within the business or outside of the business, things you're thinking about, studying, looking at, podcast, books, anything that's piquing your curiosity these days.
I'm so sad. Like I have almost no hobbies, and like for my whole life, I was healthy. I'd be exercising. I'd have these morning routines. I'd be reading, and like legit, I have no energy. Like I'm a dad now, and between work and being a dad, like even to get a book going before bed, I'm like tired. I used to read like so many fantasy novels, science fiction, like just love, like I had these pursuits, and I just feel so like determined on this path. So there's not really been time for like that spark of like curiosity to flourish, which is like sad, but in some ways it's just, hey, like that I've set the deck in which way I want to go, and I'm like just like pursuing it to the best of my abilities.
Life.
I feel terrible. I feel terrible pushing this onto Robbie because I have the exact same answer.
That's actually a great answer.
I used to have a list of 10 things I learned that week of like new curiosities, and I don't have that list right now. So it's because of what he's talking. I'm just like, it's nonstop. So.
Like this week, I'm like, oh, I'm going to go and interview 10 mechanical and electrical engineers to like figure out how we can cut our costs and if what was spec'd is actually needed. Like fucking great. and like next week it'll be like, oh, I got to figure out more about leases. So I'm going to go talk to like a lease expert and like review the lease for the 5th time. There's just always something that comes up, and it takes your decision and brain power and just leaving me tired. I guess one time where I'm feeling the energy, I love, this is going to sound like a total psycho, but I love the Founders podcast. This guy, David Senra, and he like reads these biographies of founders, and I find so many similarities and so much inspiration because you just hear all of them. They're like crazy. There's problems. They almost fail. All they care about is their work. They're so into the details. They love what they're doing so much that like they just want to build the thing. And I don't know many people in my life who are that one track mind. Like it's just a weird way to live an existence. And so when I listen to those, I get so fired up. Like he just released one on Whole Foods that I listened to this morning, and I was just in the taxi cab drinking my coffee, like fucking yeah, like let's go. Like right. It's like where I'm finding my peace of mind is like hearing other people like that. So that's my guilty pleasure now, is like listening. And I've learned so much about hospitality from listening to other, Target and Trader Joe's and Walmart and how to Four Seasons and how did all these brands get built over time. So that's what I spend a lot of my only free time doing now.
Yeah.
That's also the phrase guilty pleasure around like listening to something that's extremely informative and amazing. Like, come on, man. That sounds great.
Yeah. By the way, I also love podcasts. I actually just listened to Acquired with Howard Schultz. Howard's one of my someone I really look up to. But I was thinking how, yeah, you're talking about hospitality. I'm reading Unreasonable Hospitality right now. Maybe
Huge in Hampton. We talk about it all the time.
yeah, and I didn't realize like what it takes to get to this level, like to get to this like next level of a feeling. But you're ultimately using this like left brain to systemize the feeling, and so it really takes that both sides of understanding to like make something magic. And yeah, ultimately, I'm like a very like left brain systems person, and I'm trying to figure out how to find the balance between those two worlds of like art and creation and true just emotion and feeling, and of course like how to make it repeatable, right, and how to make it something that's scalable and can touch more, a billion people's lives over time, right? So yeah, anyway, that's one of my curiosities right now. I usually have like 10 weird rabbit holes. I'm deeper also. I was talking to a friend who's at MIT, and they're now studying the vibrational frequency stuff way more, which you used to see it on YouTube early on, or now TikTok, where it's like, listen to this brown noise, and we're like, okay, yeah, it's probably a good, it feels good, whatever. But now that's getting studied properly, and I think there's going to be, spaces that are really understand the human. Right now, we're like in these box things that are with lighting that's terrible for us, and like air quality and all this. What's going to happen in spaces over time is you're actually going to be feeling like you're actually in nature. I'm really curious and excited about that world. So we'll see.
I actually love that. I think that's the most optimistic view I've heard of the future of humanity in a while. That sounds great. Okay, well, thank you guys both so much for making time and joining us. It's been really nice to talk to you guys, and we'll talk more soon.
Thank you, Margaret. This has been awesome. And Robbie, we have to find time to, I know we're both very busy, but I'd love to catch up. I always really enjoy spending time in the
We're supposed to meet up, and like we have a mutual friend who's also my coach, and he's like, yeah, let's do this session before we go to the bathhouse. And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And we do it. And it's like deeper than an ayahuasca session. My body's tremoring, and he's just like whispering stuff in my ear. And I'm like, man, and he's like, all right, let's get on our bikes and like head to Othership. And I'm just like, dude, I'm like in tears. Like, I don't even think I can walk home. And so it was amazing. I didn't even know, actually, that's something that interested me, was through a combination of like Hakomi, which is somatic style release, and like whispering internal family systems prompts in my ear. I had a more powerful experience than on psychedelic medicines, just like having built trust with a coach, where like my body was releasing, and I couldn't even believe that was actually possible as a human being to do that. So Hakomi and internal family systems, and Ryan Beagleman, for anyone listening, is a magic master.
Everyone says literally the best things about Ryan.
He really is amazing. I'm lucky. I worked for him at Summit, but he's now one of my closest friends. And like, actually, I mean, people have always known he's a genius, and it's like easy to be a genius when you're like solving these, like you're buying the biggest deal of real estate as a 24-year-old in New York and stuff like that. Like that's what he was like early on famous for. I don't even know. I'm messing up the story, but now he's like a genius in like literally doing what Hakomi and all these like healing modalities. So he just like whatever he studies, he becomes great at, and then like can offer that to others. And he's a very giving person. So anyway, shout out to Ryan.
So we got to meet anyway. That long way from we missed we were gonna hang that night, and then like I just disappeared for the weekend.
New York soon, so. And also, both of you, obviously, please come out to San Francisco and let me host you, and we'll do the Alchemy.
100%. Thanks, guys.